Hello everyone and welcome back. We're back working with Miss Savvy, my newest Mustang that I got in. She's a 4-year-old from Muskrat Basin. She has been wonderful. This isn't her third session. I think this is her fifth. I did a couple sessions with her just sort of like on the whim, like quick. And I actually ended up braiding a full side of her mane the other day, so that was really cool. But I've been doing like shorter sessions with her for a few reasons. She's very ouchy still on her front legs, and I think it's making her more guarded than she actually is. And also because she is a guarded horse. And you'll see that there's some kind of conflicting body language going on throughout this video that we're going to talk about. And if you watch the first video, I went over, this a little bit and the reason that horses will sort of try to shoo you out of their space and all that. But so go back and watch that video. I won't go back into crazy detail about that for this one. Kind of want to point out what we're doing as I see it instead of sort of going on a tangent about stuff. So she's gotten a lot better, but I find these sort of quicker sessions with her more frequently during the day have been working out better. And yeah, I'm just trying to kind of minimize the work that I'm doing with her right now, just because she's not feeling that great, just her feet are hurting her. So I don't want her to start to have negative associations with me sort of moving her around. I'm not moving her around, mind you, at all. But, obviously us being in there and working with them can make them uneasy and feel the need to sort of move around a bit more than normal. So just trying to keep things pretty easy. So for this session in particular, I am just working on introducing some foundation work. So I am just trying to get a couple things established. The click, I want to continue to work on clicking and treating so she learns what the bridge signal is and that the click is associated with something really positive. And I'm also working on her taking alfalfa from my hand instead of these big, long sort of strands of it. She has to take it from my palm. And you'll see many times throughout this session that got her pretty, upset. They typically, when they're learning to take hay or anything, and they touch your actual hand, your fingers, instead of having like this big clump of hay that they can kind of grab the end of and not actually have to touch you. When they do touch your hand, they can have a lot of different reactions. They can get really invested and really sniff your hand, and sometimes you have to be cautious because with a horse like Savvy, she starts off sniffing it, and then she gets ear pinny and kind of nips. And she's never actually, gotten me yet, which is good. She sort of does these sort of, false threats and all that, but it's still something that's in the back of my mind working with her, more so in the front of my mind working with her, knowing that that's a possibility of something that she can do. And, sometimes they'll just go to grab the food really fast from your palm. And this actually happens a lot with the more nervous R+ horses in the beginning, whether it be nervous to take hay or really sort of overstimulated and almost over aroused by the hay, and the food, they're just on overloads. We have to sort of work through that and get them to not be as quick with it. So obviously in the beginning, this is like I said, session 5, I think day 5 with Savvy being here. There's so much she can do already. I'm really taking a step back here, and I'm not pushing. I'm sure if I spent a couple hours with her, I'd be able to halter her. In fact, I'd probably be able to lead her by the end of that. But that's just not the goal right now, especially, like I said, until she's sound. I don't want to work with her too much while she's lame. So just sort of taking it really easy and just starting off with some touch, which she is at this point used to. She's not 100% confident with it. She's kind of, what's the word? She's a very insecure Mustang. She's really brave about a lot of things, obviously. I can do stuff that I can't do with Ezzy and everything that I've had for months. So she's doing absolutely fantastic given that it's been 5 days. But I also just want to preface by saying, sure, I can touch her and I can do this and that, but does not mean that she's anywhere near gentled or can do haltering and leading and all these other things. So I just want to kind of mention that. A lot of people get kind of discouraged when, say, they get a horse from an adoption event that somebody else got a horse at, and that person is touching their horse and doing all these things, and they can't even get anywhere near that horse. Well, just because that horse is allowing them to do certain things doesn't mean that they're going to be comfortable with everything. And, like, that's really important to understand. Like, I used to be the type to be like, oh, yeah, let me halter and lead and do all these things as fast as possible to, like, prove what? You know? To prove what point? Like, especially working with Savvy, who's insecure, like I said, and really guarded. You know, not necessarily body touch guarded, but you'll see many times she's sort of like looking away, or she's pinning her ears, or she's showing signs of discomfort. And like, these are things that I'm working with her on learning how to handle, because sometimes it's simply like they're insecure about people touching them. So when we start, you know, getting them introduced to the touch and they realize that it's not hurting them, and in fact, they're getting reinforced for it, you know, those emotions are going to shift. So I'm also making sure that I'm actually doing things with her that's sort of pushing her every day just a little bit. I definitely don't want to be setting her over threshold and causing her to like run away or spook too big or whatever. Sometimes inevitably that happens. I have a video going up around the same time as this one of Ezzy from today when this was filmed. I worked with Ezzy prior to that, and Ezzy was a wreck today. She just was really high-wired, and I'll talk about her in her own video. But just some days, you know, they're just a little bit more reactive, and we try to keep them under threshold, but that just doesn't always work. For Savvy, I mostly did that with her today. She had a couple moments where she was using her language, which is kind of a little grumpy, but it's going to go away. She's actually like one of the coolest horses I've ever worked with, and she's going to be real, real sweet once she figures out that she doesn't need to be guarding herself and guarding her life, because I certainly don't want to eat her food, and I'm not hurting her in any capacity. So here we're just working on some touch and introducing two hands, which is great. I've done, you know, some of this before because I braided her mane, so they gotta get used to those two hands being up there, which was good. But that was really nice. And it's funny with her, it's really interesting. I'm trying to, you know, I'm using a lot of R+ here, but I'm trying to offer that negative reinforcement release as well, just so it's not just overpowering, like trying to offer this high value reinforcement when in reality she may just need like a minute of space. You know, in the beginning, they do actually respond really well to negative reinforcement, you know, because that's all that they know prior. Like we're introducing everything, but like negative reinforcement is essentially what horses communicate with. So like she is familiar with that. She is not familiar with R+. So I'm introducing it, and she's understanding, you know, the foundation stuff and what the clicker is, and that she's getting fed and all that. But I still want to be offering moments of actual release, like negative reinforcement release, you know, as a reinforcement too, just because I just don't want her to feel like she's being cornered or trapped, even though obviously she's not. We're in like the most wide open space she could be in this paddock right now. But that moment right there was really nice, and I get a couple of those where she sort of approached me and just was like standing with her shoulder, like ready for some shoulder touches, which was great because she, and I included it in the end where she gets a little guarded, but like she tends to kind of want to resist, like she's getting used to all this stuff, but for the most part, if given the opportunity or given the choice, I should really specify, because she does have the opportunity to leave, but given the choice, right now, she would rather just be left alone, you know, and so right there, she got a little bit weird with the hind end, and I was like, I'm not sure what you're doing. All I had to do was put my hand up, okay? And we're going to talk about this more towards the end of this video. Hopefully, I don't forget. But, yeah, the language that can be communicated when you have these horses that are just a little bit bold can actually be really, really subtle. And I'm not talking for every horse, because I am sure somebody out there we're going to talk about this now. When I deal with horses that are a little bit, you know, on the guarded side, they're a little bit more on the defense. They're kind of your fight over flight horses. They start to do a couple things that maybe a little bit, you know, kind of reading between the lines, what's about to happen sort of thing. I want to preface by saying we want to try to avoid horses getting to that stage. However, when we're working with new horses, especially new Mustangs, who this is maybe all that they use to communicate, like maybe that's the only way that they ever talked to each other in the herd is just kicking each other or biting each other or whatever. We want to make sure that we're not putting our horses in a position where they feel the need to do that. And if they do that, whether it's, you know, like I said, just what they know, we want to be creating an environment that's safe for us, okay? That's really important, is that both parties here, horse and human, are in the safest possible situation. So when we're working with, like, Savvy's a great example of this because you guys will see this. She, gets a little bit testy with her body. She's not quick. She's not doing anything fast. In fact, the other day I was petting her side and she started to look over at me and I'm like, okay, I know you're about to do something. And then she lifted her leg ever so politely and was like, I might do something. And I'm like, okay, so obviously in that situation, everything was quiet and calm and we were able to, like, really quickly de-escalate that. And it was great. We both learned something in that moment. I didn't do anything crazy. She didn't do anything crazy. We just had to figure out the communication there. It was really rather cool. I wish I got it on video. But that situation where you can really analyze what's about to happen or predict what's about to happen, those are the moments where you do not need to be overreactive. I very often see a horse do something, nipping or whatever the situation is, and it's mostly moderately minor. All right, people react so strongly to that and they, like, beat their horses or do whatever or chase them for like 20 laps or whatever it is, and, like, the horse got it, like, well before it had to really escalate to that situation, to that point where, like, you're running your horse into the ground because they lifted a leg or maybe nipped at you or whatever. I'm not saying that those are acceptable behaviors in any capacity, okay? But they're also really important language indicators that the horse is displaying some level of discomfort, could be annoyance, could be whatever. But even so, even if it's annoyance, like, then we need to work through that and teach the horse a better way to communicate their frustration and figure out what's causing the annoyance to the severity that they have to react in that capacity. So that's just a little bit of a rant on that. I'm going to probably talk about that more, at least on the Winter Wish page. I'll probably make a write-up post about it where I can, like, get my thoughts written down appropriately. But this is the second, like, I paused that first session where we were just doing some, like, leading at Liberty. She did great. And then I stopped for a minute and I wanted to just do a little bit more, and I changed the camera setting, which is why the quality is better. And this clip, it's shorter than the other one. I got a lot of really interesting body language communication going on where Savvy was displaying signs of discomfort, and I'm going to show you kind of how I handled that given how this horse reacts to certain stimulus and, like, what's causing those discomforts. So right now I'm just working on touch and food, the same thing that I was doing in sort of the first section of this video. They're literally 2 minutes apart. But I just wanted to share, I'm working on body touch and she shows discomfort there. And I'm sure there was a time or two in this video she tried to nip at my hand. I may have missed it. It might be in this, actually. I'm not sure. But, like, that is her language right now. That's how she communicates. So I'm just guiding her back up. She is so cute. I love this horse. Giving her more food. And again, when she stiffs my hand, she kind of gets quick with the food because she's like, I don't want to touch your hand. I'm stressed about that. So we're getting some stress behaviors. And I'm just petting her, and I'm sure she's gonna, okay, I know she might be doing something soon. She doesn't bite me or anything, but she kind of nips at the air, and I just want to make sure I'm not talking over that, and I catch it. But yeah, just working on sort of increasing her tolerance to me, because I can do a lot of things. I can rub her ears, I can, I braided her mane, I can brush her body, I can touch her face, but there's just signs right there. She got a little nippy. I didn't do anything. I kept my hand there for a second, so she realized that that's not how we get rid of that, and then I took my pressure away. I did not chase her. I didn't do anything crazy. If this horse would have charged at me, mouth open, and tried to really move me away from the space, that would be a different situation. But because she was saying, you know what, I don't really want you touching my face, I don't really like that, that's different. And that's a really nice way to communicate, but I didn't love the biting and the nipping. It's a lot better than charging, right? But I just wanted to say, you know what, that's not how we get rid of my hand. I'm going to leave my hand up for a minute, and once you're quiet, I'll take my hand away. So we're using some negative reinforcement there, because what triggers that kind of annoyed response isn't quite predictable enough yet for me to really reinforce her right before she does something, because it's just not... It's not consistent. I could touch her whole face and she does nothing. And then one time I touch her cheek, which I've done, and maybe for like another second too long, she gets frustrated. So the predictability element isn't quite there for me to avoid going over that threshold point. So I still have to experiment with her and figure all that out. And I'm sure by the time I do figure it out, she's going to stop doing it because she's not going to be uncomfortable. And that's fine. So yeah, I'm just working on body touch and with two hands, because two hands are normally scary. And she backs away to show some discomfort. I'm going to just keep my hand up for a minute, see if she wants to re-engage with me. That was good. So then I'm going to click and treat her. So I'm not going to necessarily follow her, because right then when I was touching her with both hands, she just got uncomfortable and backed away. And if I were to kind of follow her, she would be like, okay, how do I communicate that I'm uncomfortable more so? And that's when you get biting and kicking and all that, like really not great stuff. So the subtle stuff is what I just want to keep encouraging her to do, but I also want to sort of give her another opportunity to get reinforced. So here I'm just trying to get her to follow me around. And this is just sort of like the precursor for leading at liberty. It's just getting her, and I did this in the first part of the video, but I was talking again. I said I wasn't going to do that, and then I get distracted, because this is what happens when I don't have my mic and I'm not talking in real time. I'm just like filming and voicing over and saying whatever I feel like. So sorry, you guys, if this is like unorganized chaos. But yeah, just working on touch. So right there, she got a little discomfort, and I just want to sort of go back into it. That was much better. So clicking, treating. And there was the nerve, so that's why she's taking hay fast. So I offered to try that again. And then there was another big screw you. So then I was like, okay, we're going to go back to something and then click and treat for that, maybe. No, I didn't that time. Okay. Oh, I wanted to just do it one more time and give her a release that time, because she was getting frustrated. See, this is why I need my mic. She was getting frustrated with taking hay, so I figured in that moment the actual release of pressure was the better reinforcement for her. But that's why she's doing that quick take and kind of throwing her face around, because she just keeps touching my fingers and she doesn't want to. So right here we get some posturing action. So we got to turn head, turn ear. The booty was swinging a little bit. So I'm just going to keep an eye on this. So right here she really thinks about it, and I'm just putting my hand up. And that is all this horse needs. That's all. So I'm going to redirect her with my hand. Really good. Now, again, if you have a quicker horse, that's a different situation. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about these horses like this that are showing really subtle signs of, I might move you, and just making it really easy to redirect them and correct that. So obviously, different situations for every horse that we're working with. But this is for, if you have a horse that's like Savannah or Savvy, this is what I want the correction to look like, where it's just really subtle and quiet, and then I'm just like totally redirecting her and asking for some easy things again. See, I'm just trying to get her to follow my hand. The look away. I call it avoidance posturing. It really doesn't have a term for it, but whenever Epona, who also will have a video up today, who I have not had a video on in a while, so make sure you check that one out too. She does a lot of avoidance posturing, where she just sort of stands and then just looks away, just trying to kind of like tune me out. And I want to try to avoid that as much as possible, just to kind of get them engaged and interested. But she's doing a great job following me. Like, really nice. And that was much better taking the hay. And better for body touch, too. And then again, I'm just sort of releasing for that one. So I'm kind of playing around with doing both. I'm releasing pressure and also offering reinforcement. And then right there, she walked away. And then I back away to kind of draw her back in if she wants to engage, and she did. So it's a lot of just sort of getting them interested and wanting to play and figuring out what's going on. You know, like she's, like I said, a really quiet, very quiet horse, like super quiet. Day to day, she does like not much. And granted, her feet are sore too, so I'm sure when she's feeling better, that'll improve. But just kind of getting them engaged and wanting to take hay and being interested is sort of the focus. And of course, she spooks at the back. But that was it for Savvy. She did absolutely fantastic. So we're ending that there.